Welcome to the 10th episode of the Irie Army Podcast. I am Graybeard. He is Billypodunk. Our special guests tonight will be Brett and Scott from Microbe Life Hydroponics. But before we get to that, Billy, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing okay, buddy. Doing okay. It's been a crazy week. It was my first week this last week without the old job. So just getting my bearings, man. How about you? How are you doing?
Just cruising, man. Doing really good. My grow's all set up in my new place now, so it's just doing really nice. Just nice not to be worrying about that part of my life. Just looking forward to the summer and whatever we decide to come up with. What are you smoking on, Billy?
Oh, buddy. Allegedly, I got some berries. Opportunity to smoke some of a plant that I made, and it was grown really well, and definitely hits me right in the face. It's like one of those. My face and my head and my forehead get all numb. It's really nice.
It's
Good and
crazy
relaxed.
because I also smoke some Berry. It's also in my face, in my head, and I know exactly what you mean, man. It's a beautiful plant. I'm glad you like it, man. Speaking of Bud of the Week, I just posted it in the Irie Army podcast chat there. We've got Levity Love Day with C99 crossed with TGA Vortex. What? We got Rasta GT with Motown Love. His personal breeding project is just beautiful, stacking nicely. We got High with Gushers, which is just frosty. I think he just harvested, I think he said. I might be wrong with that, but it's super frosty, looking real good. And then we got Shifty, which Shifty didn't put his bud, but it was nice and frosty. I had to put it up there. Um,
Mystery bud.
Mystery bud, you gotta love the mystery bud. But all of them, you guys are just killing it as growers. I mean, it's so hard to choose. Even when we upgraded to having 4 people a week, it's still like, dang, there's too many good pictures. Discord this week, we got the usual, Stoner Yoga with Kaylin every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And then Dave's Not Here has his things he likes to do every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to check both of those out. Billy, all you, man.
All right, man. I'm pretty excited. This is, I think, the first time we've had a vendor or like a supplier of products on the show. We got Scott and Brett from Microbe Life Hydroponics. You guys probably know him. I know we talk a lot on this server about Photosynthesis Plus. I think a lot of us have started using that product. I didn't know how much other stuff they have, but without further ado, let's get talking to these guys. Welcome, Brett and Scott. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, doing good.
Well,
Well,
thank you so much for having us.
of course, man. I'm really looking forward to finding out more about what you guys are doing. So let's start with a little history, who you are, what you do at Microbe Life, and maybe the origin story of where the company came from.
All right. Well, I think I'll take that one. This is Brett Richter from Ecological Laboratories. We produce the Microbe Life Hydroponics products. Again, thank you for having us. And just a little bit of history of who we are. We started off as a family owned and operated business, biotech company, which we still are. The company was founded in 1976 in New York by my father and my uncle. Um, Bottom line is, with these two gentlemen, we really didn't have a science background as a family. We were entrepreneurial family, entrepreneurial spirit, and just salespeople, really, at the forefront of everything. And my father, who was, again, one of the founders in 1976, was working for a company in New York City, really selling, hard, chemicals back then when no one really cared about the environment, bleaches and other solutions to either hospitals, custodians in schools, office buildings. And at this company, there was an older gentleman, about 20 years senior of my father, who was a biologist, a PhD, way ahead of his time, that was developing all these earth-friendly microbes that could achieve many different things in the environment. And the bottom line was, this gentleman and my father became very, very close. And the scientist, the biologist who had these formulations years ago, who said to my father, "Listen, I'm a scientist. I can't sell anything." He said to my father, "You're a salesman. You could sell anything. Why don't we, start our own little gig and see what we can do?" And really, long story short, that was the beginning of Ecological Laboratories in 1976. And our main focus with the bacteria and microbes that we were producing at that time, of course, all earth friendly and all natural and couldn't harm the environment. The main focus was selling to slaughterhouses and food production farms where animals were either being slaughtered for human consumption, and all the waste, whether it was, the animal, the hardcore, the bones, the blood, the animal waste would go into football fields, size of football fields, 10 feet deep of just waste. And it would create lots of solids and odors that would smell up, the towns they were in. So we were really focusing on remediating all that animal waste at first. And that was our foray into the biological products into the market. And then that segued into other type of animal husbandry and, poultry farms, hog farms, cleaning up the waste of the animals, where the microbes all naturally would break down the solids and turn it back into liquids, and it would allow the effluent to be properly put back into the environment by reaching all of the government parameters, whether it was the BOD, the COD, TSS, all different types of parameters many years ago. But the interesting part was back in the 70s and early 80s, there really wasn't this push to save the environment and use environmentally friendly or natural solutions. So we were a little bit of ahead of our time, so to speak, but it wasn't easy. And when everyone was just using chemicals to treat, environmental issues.
So what is the history of how that translated into something that the cannabis community is, a lot of us are using it and stuff, and where did that transition happen and when, and how did that kind of play out?
Great question. We go from cleaning up animal waste to growing or cultivating cannabis. I mean, it really is.
Hey, Brett, you're breaking up a little bit there, buddy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, yeah. So, going from animal, and cleaning up animal waste to cannabis cultivation is unique in its own right. But we went through stages as we grew as a company, and our microbes, we knew that we could clean up waste in water and break down dead algae and denitrify water and clean up waste. So we began to start cleaning up lakes and rivers all naturally with our microbes. That then segued into the septic tank market, where we would have our products going into the septic tanks, those not on city sewers, and it would break, in the leach field and the septic tank. We'd break down the human waste. We would turn it into liquid so it could be pumped out easier by pumpers. That then segued into a brand called Microbe Life that we went into with the backyard pond and water garden market, with folks with the water gardens, the waterfalls, the koi fish, and our microbes would break down the algae in the water, so the customer or the pond owner or hobbyist could see their fish in clean, clear water. And then that transitioned to testing it on crop agriculture. And that was about 22 years ago. And we had such success using our microbes on traditional crops, everything from traditional trees, citrus, tomatoes, soy, rice, cotton, the list goes on and on, cucumbers, pineapple. And we started getting tremendous results with our microbes, with growth, yield, beating disease and pests and pathogens. And we started to develop a whole brand that we were marketing and selling globally. And we got to the point where our microbes were being used on hundreds of thousands of commercial hectares and acres around the globe for farming. So that became a very big focus for us in our business. And then that's where we came into the cannabis realm. Scott and I were working together on the water garden side of the business for many years. And, we started to recognize about 12 years ago that the cannabis cultivator didn't have access to reliable microbes that were shelf stable, that were earth friendly, and that really work. There were products out there that they would use the term snake oil, or it was just water in a bottle. And we knew we had products that would really work. So we started doing a lot of third-party testing and verification with our products, changing our formula a little bit to be less for aquatic applications, more for plant applications. And, I became a fan of cannabis when I was in high school. I mean, to be upfront, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's when it all happened for me. And I always had a love for the plant. And in college, I had a very big love for the plant. And I know Scott had a love for the plant. We started to do some research, and noticed that there really wasn't microbes available to the cannabis cultivator. So we started to do some research, market research, and we started to pitch Barry and Michael Richter, the owners of the company, that there's this whole market out there that, has no access to a technology that we have. And, being a privately owned family business, we were able to really jump on board and say, okay, do we want to do this? Is this a direction the company wants to go in? And we felt that it was necessary and to be progressive and not to be like other companies out there that were scared of the plant, scared of the legalization or the illegalization, so to speak. And we wanted to go full on board and really bring something unique to the marketplace, which we felt we did. And that was about 12 years ago. We developed the Microbe Life Hydroponics brand. We, of course, put the name hydroponics in the brand name because it was such a key word and a big, obviously hydroponics is a massive way to grow, very popular. But make no mistake, our microbes and our Microbe Life Hydroponics work in soil application, aquaponics, aeroponics, and vertical farming systems. So, we work in all mediums. And the first 2 years was very difficult. We traveled the country, Scott and I, and a few of our other team members, Duffy and Bill. And we traveled to every trade show we could go to. We invested a few $100,000 in samples and just sampling the country, getting it out there. We had next to nothing, really no sales in the first 2 years. And now I can say, 12 years later, we have one of the, the most popular microbes on the market. We're expanding our channels globally through Europe, through South America, and of course through the United States with our technology. So the path to the plant, so to speak, really started with, cleaning up animal waste, cleaning up septic tanks, going into ponds, going into aquariums, and, really marketing our microbes where we could. But the Microbe Life Hydro brand is a very solid product line that, that growers, award-winning growers now trust and won't use anything other than our microbes. And, one of the nice things I could say is just this market and the cultivators alone for Scott and I, it's been the most exciting and best community that we've ever worked with. Just like-minded people, growers wanting to treat the environment the right way, understand that microbes are very important for the soil or for your grow medium and the way our products interact with the plant. It's been very gratifying, and being able to help on the medicinal side and those caretakers or those suffering and using cannabis as medicine, knowing that their cannabis is grown clean with microbes that are all natural, completely safe, can't harm the environment, and actually help the plant become a better plant. It's been one of the most gratifying things I've done professionally in my career. So that's a little bit of history. And I say laughingly, that's the short version. I made a long story short.
The short version.
I was mentioning to Scott earlier before we came on. I have to commend you guys as a company for not being conceived in the cannabis industry or with the plant or with growers and being willing to make the move to that. And, as far as it being called Microbe Life Hydroponics, I didn't even know that hydroponics was part of the name. I grow in cocoa and I use it all the time. And it's truly one of the game changer products, that Photo Plus, in my garden.
Well, thank you for that.
Where do you see the company going? What are your goals, like in the next few years or so, as far as in relation to specifically the growers community?
It's not to sound cheesy or corny, but it's a very clear answer. Our mission and goal is to make sure that every cultivator of cannabis out there has access to our Microbe Life product. We have the utmost confidence in our technology. We know that it's been tried to be duplicated or try to be replicated, and it cannot be. It's a proprietary formulation, and the results really are there with every grower that uses it. So it is our mission to give access and make sure we're working our behinds off to make sure we find distributors all over the country to bring our technology to the cultivator. That's our mission. We're not going to stop until every grower has access to our products. And that's a tall task, but we work hard every day at trying to achieve that.
Well, even if you get halfway there, having half the growers have access is wonderful. I know a lot of growers here in this community. That's why I started using it. I was urged repeatedly by different people to try it out and given different ways to use it. And guys from all sorts of different grow styles are using it.
It's nice to have a product like Photo in particular that when you hand it to somebody and say, that's why we sampled so heavily early on, Like when you hand it to someone and say, try it, you got nothing to lose, right? It won't hurt anything. Try it. And 19 out of 20 times they come back and say, oh my God, we got to get this stuff. We're on board. It's nice to have a product that works that well. And I tested everything before we had a label, before we had even a name for the brand. I was testing it on every single thing I grow beforehand. I mean, I used it heavily on everything. I wanted to be sure, and it works. It's just nice to know you've got that in your hand.
Oh, I agree, and it's actually helped me bring some plants back from the edge of more than one occasion.
It's funny that you said that. One of the, the lines and part of our story when we meet growers at trade shows, which we've traveled extensively now all over the place, was that, you would say, all right, every grower has, everyone's very confident in their grow room, but every grower might have that one or two plants that it's just not, they're not looking right. They're just misbehaving. They look sad. And I would tell the grower at the trade show, here's this bottle of photo. I want you to use this on that plant that might be struggling a little bit. And when you see how that struggling plant responds to the photo, you're going to have so much confidence on what it's going to do to your healthy part of your garden. And, we always get the feedback from the growers. You know what? You're absolutely right. It worked. Everything perked up. We're going to put this in the rest of the garden. And then they don't look back. And one of the keys also to the proof of our success, thank God, because, listen, you need a good product. You need to work hard, and you need a little bit of luck, right? There's a whole combination to be successful. But with the physical characteristics of the photo, and we all know and love the smell of the product, that if it didn't work, no one's tolerating that smell. And at this point, at this point, if it doesn't smell, people get upset. The growers will get upset. It doesn't smell. It doesn't smell. So the fact that we overcome the smell in every market we've been in is a testament and proof to the efficacy of the product.
So I'm going to start getting into some questions that are a little bit more technical about what some of your products are. I got one that wasn't on the list that I sent you, something I know. The Photo Plus Organic and the Photo Plus Premium, what's the difference?
So you mean aside from the 15% difference in price? So the organic, so the process of creating Photo Plus, of fermenting it, every bottle that's shipped, whether it's a 4-ounce sample or a 275-gallon tote, it's fermented in the container that it's shipped in. That's very important in its stability. And in order to do that, because there's a blend of both spore-based and vegetative cultures, right? The photosynthetics are active in the bottle, right? They're not dormant. Like a lot of the biological products on the market it's all spore, it's all bacillus, things like that. They're like a packet of seeds. They'll sit there forever until you put them in the system. The photosynthetic bacteria is active. It can't be put to sleep, right? We're trying to figure out a way to do that, or to even create a dry version. It's at this point not possible, right? So we have to keep it alive in that bottle. So we have to create an ecosystem in the bottle. So it's fermented in there. The bacteria is going through its life cycle. It's dividing. It's increasing the population. It's feeding. It's growing. It dies off. It goes through this cycle over and over again for years in that bottle. And in order to make that happen, we have to feed it, right? There has to be food in the bottle. The problem with getting the OMRI certification on the original version of Photo, which is still an all-natural product, is that the food source was not OMRI approved, right? It wasn't, the ingredients used in building that growth media didn't all come from OMRI approved facilities. It wasn't what they considered a true organic source. So we had to change the formulation. It takes a little bit longer to actually produce it. So the food source is different, and there's also we took the mycorrhiza out, right? So in the organic version, there's the mycorrhiza that you find in the standard version is not there. We had to do that to get through that certification. I don't really think. I mean, there's some data that shows you might see a little bit of a bump from organic. Originally, I didn't think so. That basically, in the end, they were going to work the same. But the organic version, there's some recent anecdotal, we'll call it, evidence that you might actually get a little bit of a kick from that organic version because of the the carbon source that's used to feed the bacteria in the bottle. But overall, you'll get the benefit from both. If you don't need organic certification, if you don't need that OMRI stamp, personally, I wouldn't spend the extra money. But they're both there. At some point, hopefully we'll get to the point where we're producing enough of the organic version that the production price of that can come down a little bit. And maybe we won't need to. But we had to change the formulation to get that organic certification. Functionally,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Scott, you're breaking up just a little bit. I don't know if it's where you're at or not. I think we.
Sorry, you know what? I was. You can't see me. I was spinning in my chair while I was talking. So I kind of was spinning away from the microphone.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was just a question I had as somebody who uses it, wondering what that you had two products like that. But we got a couple of. Go ahead.
Just to build on that, Scott, because it's a good question, the difference between the organic photo and the standard photo that you just described. Many of your listeners maybe might even have the question is, what are the other, you might see a label called plus C, you might see a label called plus O.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So Scott, why don't you, let the listeners know a little bit of why we have different labels for the same product.
Yeah, that actually creates a little confusion because people will say, "Hey, I heard great things about this Plus C. How is it different than the Photo Plus?" There is no difference, right? That's a labeling issue because of the original registration process. The less information you put on a label, right, the easier it is to register. And we could have had like a label with no information on it, and had one label for the Photosynthesis Plus, but because of our background, we have our own lab. We're full, we got a lab full of microbiologists and biochemists, and we wanted to put as much information on the label as we could. And certain states, California most notably, like California said, you can't say photosynthesis on the label, which was crazy, right? So we had to change the name. Like we weren't allowed to mention it. So we had to change the name to Plus C. To get a certification in California, and then Oregon was like, "Oh, well, that California label is okay, but you have to add this statement." So now there's a Photo Plus. Oh, Oklahoma said we want the least amount of information on the label as possible, right? So now there's an okay. Oklahoma likes their stuff dumbed down. Illinois had some requirements, so we have like 5. I think there's now a Hawaii, right? We haven't shipped that yet, but there's now a Hawaii label. So it's all of those products are the same. The only one that's different is the organic in terms of formulation, the OMRI label. The others, Plus O, Plus C, Photo Plus, they're all the same product. It's just a state labeling issue. Okay. You'll see that with some of the other products too. There's more than one label for Nourish. There's more than one label for the root dip. There's more than one label for the yield enhancer. But internally, content-wise, they're the same. It's strictly a labeling issue.
Well, as somebody the only product that you guys have, I mean, I'm definitely going to check out more after talking to you guys, but the only one that I've used is the Photo Plus, the Photosynthesis Plus. So from what I understand, there's like bacterial microbe culture of different types of organisms. Can you explain kind of like why Photosynthesis Plus works, and without giving away any proprietary information, like what's happening in that bottle when I get it, and why does it smell that way?
So I touched on that a little bit. That fermentation in the bottle, right? The photo's all produced in the bottle. The smell is sort of a byproduct of that, but the consortium overall is a blend of a lot of different strains of bacteria specifically selected for targeting different areas of growth in the plant, whether it's stimulating root production or uptake of nutrient or solubilization of nutrient in the soil. Because the photo is not just working in the plant, right? It's working in the soil. It's creating an entire biological balance between what's outside the root as well as what's inside the plant, right? So we've selected all of these different strains of bacteria for specific modes of action, and blended them together with the photosynthetic bacteria, which is really the key to get all these together. So There's a lot of strains of bacteria in there. They are not all listed on the label. And again, depending on what state you're in, you may see less and less information. There's a lot more information on the national label than there is on the Oklahoma label or the Hawaii label. So
where can somebody like me find the most information on a label if I live somewhere like California?
on the national label, I mean, you go to our website and you should be able to trick it into showing you the national label if you live in California. The most information there on our website, but the process for creating it, as I mentioned before, it's right. The photo is fermented in the container. A lot of biological products on the market are mixed in these really big vats and big batches, and then just bottled. Right, it's poured down into the smaller bottles. We're fermenting in the container, right? And again, the reason for that is the photosynthetic bacteria, which is really important to how this works, is vegetative. It's always active, and we have to stabilize it and feed it in the bottle and create that ecosystem. Its primary food source in the container is sulfur, right? So you basically put the purified water, the bacterial cultures, the food source in the bottle. It gets sealed, and it goes into a grow room. We have these massive grow rooms with LED lights. You can see pictures on the website. And the photosynthetic bacteria is activated by fermenting it under light, in light and heat. And in the process, it uses up the oxygen in the bottle. The bottle becomes, the environment in the bottle goes anaerobic. And in that state, those photosynthetic bacteria are able to feed on sulfur as their source of carbon. A byproduct of that is hydrogen sulfide, which kind of, as it builds up in the bottle, works as an anesthetic to slow down the life cycle. It kind of slows the whole process, which is why it's real important to always close that bottle back up and trap in the smell. Eventually, the smell will go, but you want to trap it in as long as you can. And but that hydrogen sulfide is a byproduct of the natural biological activity of the photosynthetic bacteria in the bottle. But yeah, that blend, that consortium is it's not random, right? The lab has worked to target specific areas of activity in the soil and in the plant.
I didn't realize you guys were actually growing them in the bottles in a grow room under lights. That's pretty interesting.
It's kind of fascinating, yeah. And you could get a tan in there. I mean, we could, if it was legal here in Florida, we could have quite a grow going in those rooms. Lots of light.
Oh, are you spinning in your chair again, Scott?
I was. I'm sorry. I'll try and sit still. Yeah, Brett gets up and walks around when he's talking, and I spin in my chair. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a pacer myself normally.
Yeah.
Big pacer.
Yeah. So I was just, when I was going through your website, this is another question that wasn't on the list that we sent you, but I was on the website kind of perusing your products, and one that jumped out to me was the Terps Plus. Is that also a micro product, and how does that work? And is that something that I should consider using? I mean, obviously the answer is yes to that, but
the answer to that is, of course. No, so it is a new product, right? We haven't started shipping it yet. We have started sending out samples. So anybody that's on here, if they're interested in trying it, they can go to our website and request a sample. The actual product should start shipping in about 2 weeks. We're still in the registration process, but it's currently approved for California, Oregon, Colorado, Michigan. About I think we're up to 10 or 12 states, and they're all the approvals are coming in. That's one of those products where there's almost nothing on the label because we're trying to get one label approved as quickly as possible. It is not an organic product. It is not a microbial product. This is a pretty unique technology created by. It was actually developed by Los Alamos Labs and California University of California at Northridge not Northridge. Well, one of the campuses for a specialty food crop. It's I guess the best way to describe it is it's a fertilizer activator, right? It's actually doing a lot in the plant. Some of it mimics what photo does naturally, but the Terps Plus will boost chlorophyll production, so you get a greener leaf. Helps with photosynthesis. It helps with the uptake of nutrients, so your plant's going to use more of what's there. But it helps concentrate terpene, CBD, THC in the plant and build yield, increase yields. And it's you don't use a lot. It's a fairly potent product. Again, not organic. We really like the way it works. We would pair it. I would recommend pairing it with Photo Plus to really maximize the benefits, because then you have sort of a natural and a chemical um, ways of doing certain things in the plant. But Terps Plus is brand new. It's our first new product in I don't know what, Brett, 10 years. Um, and we were excited by this technology that was developed again for specialty food crops, and worked with the company to license it. It's been thoroughly tested, third-party labs tested on cannabis, and that information, I believe, is on the website. Some of those test results, Brett, I think, if I'm not incorrect, we put that information up. If not, we do have it. Some of those third-party labs. It's impressive, and again, together with Photo, it's kind of like a powerful combo. To do things not organic, right? Not going to lie, it's a chemical, but it's used once a week from start, right? So from the first sprout all the way up through the growth cycle. It does not cause any issues in testing. There's been no failures in testing of the end product of the dry bud. Hasn't failed any tests at the state levels for what they look for, to be considered a clean product. So it's pretty good. It's pretty potent. We're definitely excited about it, and we literally just got the labels in this week, and we've been sending out the samples for about 2 weeks now, maybe 3, and we're ready to get it out into the market.
Well, it sounds like our timing is crucial here. You heard that, guys. You want a sample of this new Terp Plus? Get on their website. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we're sending out 4-ounce samples. They're basically just white label. It's just got a sticker with dosage directions and where to go on our website to look for more information. But you'll see all the info if you go to our website, and you probably have to search for it still at this point. If you go to microbelifehydro.com and search for Terps, Terps, Terps Plus, it should take you to that page, and you'll see the spot there's all the information is there, and you should see the form to sign up for a free sample.
Yeah, I can say that it shows up in your all products page on the site.
Okay, I didn't know if it was active there yet. Okay,
I saw it yesterday.
yeah,
Are there any other products in the lineup that maybe are getting slept on, or people aren't getting the traction that you would expect them to based on what they do and how they perform?
Yeah, there's a couple of products there that so our core products, right? What we consider our core 4, hopefully core 5 with the Terps Plus. The core 4, the Photo, the Nourish, which is rare earth humic and fulvic, right? It's natural marine compost. It's actually it's not processed coal. It's not leonardite. It's a real rich source of organic humates with a lot of organic carbon. 72 elements, all water soluble, bioavailable. It's literally just natural marine compost that's dug out of the ground and processed. Just filtered and put in a bottle. The root dip, which is humic and fulvic, and a little bit of Photo and some additional strains of bacteria that stimulate root production. So no rooting hormones, no chemicals. The bacteria produce enzymes and amino acids that stimulate root production. Great for starting seeds. It's called root dip because it was originally developed as a root soak for transplant to prevent root shock. But great for cloning, great for seed start, great for early growth to build root mass, and of course for transplant. And then yield enhancer, which is like the step 2, right? So root dip gets you started, and then most people will switch over to the vegetable and fruit yield enhancer, which is humic and fulvic with bacteria that helps push the yield, push the blooming. So those do pretty well. It's weird that in certain parts of the country, like root dip might outsell yield enhancer. It definitely has a cult following depending on where you live. Those all sell very well. We're all real happy with those. We also have a couple of sleepers there. The all-in-one, which is a micronutrient supplement, not organic, right? But it's a micronutrient supplement which is great for kind of just in between fertilizations, just to keep up the minor elements. And then there's the vitamins, amino acids, right? So that's great for also not organic, right? Vitamins, amino acids is good for helping with nutrient uptake, building. It's the building blocks of cell structure and chelation, and it does a lot within your plant. Also great in aquaponics. There's some stuff in there for fish. Those products don't have as big a following. I think the problem with that is that they're not legal for sale in California or Oregon. Just because for whatever reason we could not get through the CDFA process or the Oregon Department of Agriculture, the ODA process to get those registered, and we kind of gave up on trying to get it registered. So they didn't pick up the big following. West Coast definitely drove our market early on with the Plus C and the Photo Plus Oregon, and it kind of built there and then worked its way across the country. So those products have kind of fallen to the back. There are people that use them and absolutely love them. They just don't get the exposure, and they don't quite get the distribution that the other products get because of some of our we pretty much sell through distribution for the most part. I mean, you can go to our website and order, but in terms of going to the local grow shop, it's all coming from distribution, and a lot of them won't carry products that aren't approved or for sale, certified in California or Oregon, being the biggest markets. So they just don't get the exposure, but they're great products, and they can be found on our website.
That's interesting because as somebody who is constantly evaluating products and shifting what products I'm using, what feeds I'm using, when I see something and I see it's not available for sale in a couple of states, maybe it shouldn't be a red flag, but I kind of think, hey, why is this not? Why should I not use this? Why are they saying they can't be in these states?
Yeah, it's a weird process, and I got to say, we have someone that does registration for us. I try not to dig too deep into it. I'm obviously I'm tied into it a little bit, but I don't do the registration, right? So there are sometimes it's cost. Like let's talk. You look at a product like Photosynthesis Plus, even the California label, which is before Oklahoma, the California label was the most restrictive in terms of the information. And we thought, okay, well, California approved it, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma was like, well, no, you basically have to take all of this information off, in terms of claims and what you say it will do, and certain information on the label, or you have to spend, X amount of dollars to do 4 studies in 4 parts of the state on 4 different types of soil, for X amount of years in order to get this approval. And at some point with some products, you just go, it's just not worth it. And back off. I mean, Canada's been like that. We've been trying to get Photo Plus approved in Canada for years, and it's just a nightmare to get across the border. And we're still working on it, but we were actually discussing last week, is it even worth it at this point? You just keep throwing money at it, and the states, or in this case like Canada, for whatever reason, they go, oh no, we need this. Oh well, that's okay, but we need this study, and then you got to go back to the back of the line, and at some point you just kind of give up. But I don't know why, like especially the vitamins and aminos. I don't know why it wouldn't get approved in California. I'm assuming it's a labeling issue. I never looked at.
It sounds like the labeling issue is pretty common.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, you could come out with a product like we kind of did with Terps Plus. You throw a name on it that people will kind of get the idea, and you put no information on the label, right? So I mean, on the label for Terps Plus, we make no claims, right? And we're trying to get it approved with one label in every state, so we don't run into that multiple label issue. So we couldn't make any claims on the label. We had to take off all the claims. There's a lot of stuff not listed on there. Interestingly enough, a lot of the states don't care what you don't put on the label. They only care what you do put on the label. It's such a weird.
It is so weird, And then now we got guys can't get Photo Plus in Canada, and there's some great growers in Canada that would appreciate that product. I had a.
Hey, if I could just add if I could just add real quick about Canada, our other brands that we have that are for aquatics, our Microbe Lift brand of microbes that we produce for the aquatics for the ponds and the Microbe Lift for aquarium, we could sell in Canada all day. It's different. They consider a soil application different than an aquatic application. So it's very frustrating for a biotech company like us where we know the microbes are very safe and we could get it into a country under one application, and then for another market, a different application. The red tape is just never ending, so to speak. So that is just very frustrating our end. And if there are any Canadian listeners right now, we're working feverishly. As we said, we've been trying for years, and sometimes it gets a little bit deflating, but it's still something that's constantly on our radar that we're looking for the best solution for Canadian growers. So that's just a little background on that.
Well, and the labeling issues, excuse me, the labeling issues aren't just affecting you guys. I don't know on a lot of things, and this is kind of illuminating in a way. I know on a lot of products I use that I don't have a lot of stuff on the label for exactly that reason. It's easier to put something in the bottle and not put it on the label, and then I don't know what it is as a grower, which is very frustrating.
Right. Luckily, you can always get a hold of us, and we'll tell you. But yeah, we can't put it on the label. We're pretty accessible, so we talk to growers all the time. We get emails from people. We get calls from people. There's a disturbing number of people that have my personal phone number, and I get calls all the time. From people just saying, "Hey, I got a question," and in some cases it's somebody who's growing their first plant in their closet in their dorm room, and in some cases it's somebody with acres and acres and acres of grow. But we're accessible.
So that brings up a good question. Also, kind of delving off the list here a little bit, just because I'm curious. So you guys are obviously selling products that are meant for growers, home growers, hobby growers, and commercial growers. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
What is your experience, Scott and Brett, both with growing? Have you guys grown before? You've been involved with friends that grow. What's your stories?
I can neither confirm nor deny. Yeah. Let's say I've been involved with friends that grow. We'll leave it there.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, Brett's got an entire grow room in his basement. Let me give you his address. No, yeah, it's always been around, right? Since exposed to it since college, right? So, but I've never lived in a state where it's legal. So,
got you. Yeah, I was just curious because that's normally one of the questions we ask, a little bit of history with the plant and the growth.
Yeah, I could add. I have a little bit of history with from my first foray. We were in college, and a few of my buddies and I, it was our senior year. We said, what? I think it was the end of our junior year. And we said, we were naive. Let's just grow our own. I like it simple, right? 19, 20 years old, thinking that this was, put a seed in the ground and you're going to have an endless supply of flour, which of course we learned very quickly wasn't the case. But the story that even led up to our first go around, and this was in college, was getting the genetics. And, this is when the internet had first really started in 98, 99, e-commerce, so to speak, at its infancy. And I remember we ordered genetics from a company in, I think it was in Canada. And I don't remember how we paid, but, after a few months, nothing ever showed up. Nothing showed up. And then I think it was the beginning of our senior year. So we all went home for intersession, summer break. We came back for a fall semester of our senior year. And one day a package, like 6 months later, truly came to our house. And we didn't even know what it was. There was no return address. We cracked open a box and it was a VHS tape. And we said, what is this? And then we just started exploring. And once we cracked open this tape, there was, some genetics in there. And we were excited. We couldn't believe it showed up. We thought, we lost our money. And after all that excitement, about 3 weeks later, we realized we had no idea what we were doing. And everything we bought from the local grow shop, it was just really a big waste of money. We had nothing to see for it. But it was our first shot at even trying and attempting it. And that story always just stands out to me, because if I knew then what I'd be doing now for a career and a passion and trying, and wanting to really change the cannabis community to, to everyone understand why our microbes are so beneficial, I would have said, no way. I wouldn't be doing this, now 20 years later. So that story always makes me laugh because, we were, naive kids just thinking, hey, let's grow. And, looking back now is a very important lesson, knowing what I do now, that, it's an art form. And, you could ask 10 growers their techniques, and you're going to get 10 different stories. And, it's certainly, I'm not pretending to be, just with knowledge and grow and do this and you could do, all the things that, growers or the OGs have really perfected for the many years that even gave us an opportunity to be in this market. And you really understand how smart, how rigorous, how determined that the OGs were to really start the movement that paved the way for a company like us to really get involved. That the work they put in and the education involved, it's an art form, and I have a lot of respect.
Yeah, big shout out to the OGs, man. We wouldn't be here without them.
I mean, they set the way for us, and just really can educate any cultivator that, hey, you really need to know what you're doing. It's an art form, and so much respect goes out to all the cultivators who are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into their gardens.
Oh, absolutely. Hey guys, don't forget, anybody in the live chat, if you have any questions for Brett and Scott, we'll be switching over to that after a few more questions here. So I'm curious, Brett, you were talking a little bit about getting those genetics. So my first question is, what did you get? And then my second question that I usually ask people with a grow is, what's in your garden that got you excited right now? Do you have a plant that gets you excited?
Things. I don't want to disappoint the listeners, but if I could ever remember those genetics, that would be that. This was like 1998. I couldn't even remember what they were. We didn't even know at that point the difference between male and female seeds. We really knew nothing. So to answer that question, I have no idea what we got back then. But as for now, for my particular garden, funny enough, we're in the cultivation garden, backyard industry, outdoor, ponds, home aquariums. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I was raised in apartments. I never had a backyard until now. So I now have a backyard now. I'm raising a family, and I don't want to disappoint the listeners, but I don't have anything spectacular going in my backyard other than the traditional houseplants right now. I mean, traditional, some basil, tomatoes during the season. We've had some fun with my kids trying to grow some pumpkins. But, I have to be honest with you. You wouldn't be too impressed if you came to my backyard. If we really wanted to impress you, I would say, what, come to our labs in Florida. We'll show you everything that we have going on, the R&D, the testing, everything that we develop with different plants or different fish for our aquatic markets. But if you came to my home right now, you'd probably walk out saying, who is this? Well, I mean, this was disappointing. I mean, it would be like going to, Babe Ruth's house and not. No, I don't say that. I don't want to say that. I don't want to make that correlation. But it's like going to, someone's telling you about how great something is of a product, and then they don't even, have it in their house, so to speak. So yeah,
I don't think it needs to come from you. Yeah, there's enough plugs, especially on the Photo Plus.
I would disappoint a lot of people if they saw my garden.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. Kind of lost my spot. Give me just a second. Here's a question that was from your FAQs. This is probably more for Scott. You said photosynthetic bacteria a couple different times there. What's the difference between the photosynthetic bacteria and then the photosynthesis that happens in a plant?
So really, photosynthesis is a process, right? So plants and certain bacteria use light together with CO2 to create sugar, right? Glucose, right? And oxygen. So photosynthesis is a process that works. Sorry, let the dog out of the room. Photosynthesis is the process, in both the bacteria and the plant where the energy from the sun is used to convert the carbon dioxide into sugars, which support the bacteria and the mycorrhiza that essentially feed the plant. Right. So the process is the same. The difference is how they do it is not in the process, but in the capability. Let's say so. Plants are limited to the amount of light they can use, the light spectrum that they can use for photosynthesis. The bacteria can use a much broader spectrum of light for photosynthesis, and it does two things, right? So Photo Plus, some of the bacteria in Photo Plus increases chlorophyll production in the leaf, so you get a let's call it a greener leaf. So it becomes a better photocollector on its own. But the addition of the photosynthetic bacteria, which opens up the plant to the broader spectrum, increases the plant's ability to use available light for cycling carbon. I might have stepped on myself there as I was talking, but essentially that's the process, right? So the bacteria is working with the chloroplast in the leaf to use more of the available light, whether that's sunlight, LEDs, whatever your light source is. The plant can use more of that light spectrum to photosynthesize. So it makes it more efficient, right? The plant, it increases carbon cycling. So more CO2 to carbohydrate production to put out those plant sugars, which is really the key, right? It takes the work off the plant. A plant puts a lot of its own energy into producing sugar to feed the bacteria and the mycorrhiza through the exudates, right? That support it, that process the fertilizer and help the plant take in nutrient and water. The bacteria increases the plant's ability to do that and cuts down on the plant's need to use its own energy for that process. So the plant grows better, it yields better, everything kind of works better and increases because the bacteria is making it more efficient. So the difference isn't in the process, it's in the way they use the light, I guess is the short version there. It took me a while to get around to that. But that's really the goal, and that's why we call it Photosynthesis Plus, right? You're getting more efficient photosynthesis for better carbon cycling. That's the key.
That is a bunch of words that I hear people say. I'm not as smart science wise as some of the guys around.
Yeah, so it's basically the photosynthesis is a process that plants use light and CO2 in the air to produce sugar that feeds the bacteria and the fungi in the soil that help it use food and water. I mean, that's really it. It's you're making it a better support system for the biology in the soil, and they also it all works better, balances it out, and the plant uses more of its own energy for growth, and it gets better support from the bacteria and the fungi in the soil. It's a whole symbiosis.
If I could even add a little bit to that, just on the product and the interaction with the plant, being that the microbes are really trying to, the microbes at the end, they're creating a healthier plant, a healthier, soil, rhizosphere, trophic level, the first trophic level, the second trophic level of the rhizosphere where all life is. So our microbes and all are creating a healthier plant and soil environment. So what does that mean for the other products cultivators are using? If they're using a nutrient program from any other manufacturer out there, or any whatever program they're using, the healthier plant because of our product will then break down and metabolize the other inputs, or let's just say nutrients that a cultivator is using more efficiently. So the nutrient companies really enjoy when their products are being used in conjunction with the photo, because their products are actually more efficacious when they're used with our product, because the plant is healthier enough to break that down and utilize those nutrients more efficiently.
Well, it's slightly off, right? So the bacteria is actually breaking it down, right? So the bacteria in the soil helps solubilize things like phosphorus and potassium, right? Helps make it more available to the plant, and the microbes help transport it to the plant, right? Feed it to the plant. So it makes the nutrient more available, and it increases the plant's ability to uptake it, to use it. So it becomes more efficient, which really is nice, because in the end, you can cut back a little bit on your fertilizer and still get better results, right? Less in, more out is a talking point for us, especially on really large grows where they're spending a lot of money on fertilizer. you can cut back on those inputs because everything's more efficient, right? The plant's using more of what you're giving it. There's less water waste because the bacteria builds these biofilms throughout the grow media, whether that's soil or cocoa or rock wool. It builds these biofilms that hold the water and the nutrient in the root zone, where the plant has more access to it. So there's a lot less waste, and a lot less if you're growing outside in the soil. It's not just running down into the ground. The plant hangs onto it longer and uses more of it. So everything becomes more efficient, and we reduce waste on the input, and we help increase the output. That's really the goal. Less in, more out. Less fertilizer, less water, less need for pesticide, better growth, higher yield, more potency. I mean, and that's anything. That's whether you're growing, hot peppers or you're growing cannabis. The goal is the same, right? Less waste, and more yield, more flavor.
I'm sure there's some nutrient companies that wouldn't love being able to get away with a lot less.
Well, what's interesting is, although they may not talk about it, there's a lot of nutrient companies out there that highly recommend using photo, which Brett kind of touched on there. Companies that in some cases we have kind of a relationship with, and some that we don't, right? That will tell people use photo in your grow, because your plant will get more out of the nutrients you're buying from us. Right? You're buying our fertilizer program, but if you really want it to work, use it with photo. And in some cases, those brands have biological products, but they still will recommend photo over their.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you mentioned pesticide. I know that you have, like you said, those big 4, big 5 products for cannabis. I personally, unfortunately, don't know anybody that uses anything outside of Photosynthesis Plus. Does Photosynthesis Plus have any benefits as far as disease, pathogens, pests,
So
infection?
it does, and we try not to. We certainly never put it in writing, right? We try to avoid disease claims, right, or health claims, because we don't want to be reclassified as a pesticide, right? So if you say it kills unwanted bacteria or things like that, all of a sudden you're a pesticide, and it's a whole new nightmare level of registration.
Oh, I'm sure that's a whole separate labeling.
Avoid that. Yeah, in fact, in most things, if you see anything in writing about, let's say, Photo Plus, we often say improves plant vigor, because if we say health, it becomes a whole other nightmare.
Well, vigor is so subjective.
Right. So there's certain things we can say and we can't. But that being said, photo, we know that photo will help with powdery mildew if you use it as a foliar application, right? If you spray it on the plant, you have to do it a little more frequently. It will help with powdery mildew. There may be better ways to do it, but if you have photo and you've got a problem, it certainly will help. It helps with root disease because it builds these biofilms that help protect the root from pathogenic bacteria, right? Pathogenic microbes. And it also, because you're getting a stronger, healthier plant, right? Your plant being able to uptake nutrient better and use all of this stuff better, use what it's given. You get a stronger, more naturally disease-resistant plant, right? You get some thicker cell walls that actually can help, even with insects that are chewing on the plant. It can help reduce the damage that they do. So it does help, right? It does increase vigor, air quotes vigor, in the plant, which makes it more disease resistant and pest resistant. So it does tend to reduce the need for pesticide. You certainly don't need as much. But on that note, I'll mention that we have a product under the Microbe Lift brand, not Microbe Life. It's labeled as a pond product called BMC, Biological Mosquito Control.
I saw that.
Yeah, which has a very, very big following in the cannabis market for fungus gnat control. Our labeling, because of our registration, has dosage rates for controlling mosquitoes. It's a different application rate for fungus gnats, but it's very effective. And it is BMC, is BTI, it's a strain of bacillus that kills certain insects, and it's approved in like Colorado as a pesticide for your plants and in the cannabis world, and even in some food production. It's very, very safe. And it's a naturally, it's a naturally occurring bacteria. It's in a liquid form. We're certainly not the only people that have a BTI out there. I think we might be the only one that has it as a straight liquid that you can just add to a sprayer and spray it on your plants, spray it on the soil. But it works very, very well on fungus gnats.
So actually, I saw that product, and I immediately thought it was like another version of like a without reading about it, like a mosquito bits, like insect carcass.
That is exactly what it is, but without the cork, right? Without the carrier. Yeah.
Well, man, I could probably talk to you guys about this stuff for like 2 more hours, but we're at like an hour now, so I'm gonna turn it over to Graybeard. I appreciate you guys coming in. You've been very informative. I definitely want to try some more of your products. It sounds like you're the kind of company that we like to support. But without much more, let's get Graybeard. You ready to do some live questions? See what the folks have to ask.
Yes, sir. Yeah, guys, you guys killed it, man. We could definitely sit here for like 3 hours, just sit here and talk, man. So the first question is actually from me, because I've been thinking of questions that people have asked me over, like when I go, oh, dude, get Photosynthesis Plus, and they're like, oh, well, this or that. So the first question I have is, what do you say to the organic growers who say you can just get microbes from outside, or you can just get it from your soil and you don't need your product, so to speak?
I say, sure, absolutely, you can do that. The difference is you don't always know what you're getting, right? And finding all of the different strains of bacteria that in our case that we want in the plant, they're all found in the environment, right? We're not Frankensteining anything in our lab. We have culture banks from bacteria that come from the environment, and we blend them in a way that's going to work for the plant, right? That's going to give you all of the things you need through their mode of action to get the results we're looking for. So if you go outside and dig up some soil or some water, or brew a tea, even if you do the same process every single time, the odds of getting all of those bacteria every single time are pretty slim, and the odds of are greater that you're going to pick up something you don't want, like E. coli, right? So our microbes are fermented in a lab from culture banks that we've had for years. We know what goes in it. Every batch that we mix before it leaves the door, it runs through DNA sequencing and real-time PCR. I mean, they extensively test it to make sure there's no contamination, and that everything we want in that bottle is in that bottle. Try and do that in nature. You could spend a lifetime trying to put all that together by going outdoors and collecting it. Could it be done? Absolutely. I'm not going to tell you can't. If that's what you want to do, more power to you. But what we do is we guarantee you that every single bottle that you use is consistent. It's got the stability. It's got all the strains we want, and there's no contamination. We produce, like our facility here in Florida is EPA, FDA, CDFA, everything. We're certified by all these organizations, and we have very strict standards to meet in our processes to make sure that we're not sending something out that's got E. coli or salmonella or something.
Well, now I got
batch tested, and then everything's batch tested, and we retain samples for every batch that we produce for our microbes, where we could go back and always test if a consumer purchases a bottle and they want to know exactly when it was made, or if that bottle lost color or lost smell, which is not really an indicator of the efficacy of the product. But we could go back and we could test and go right into our sample bank and see that batch and look at it right there on the spot and see if there's an issue, and and we could look back. So we retain samples from every batch for years and years and years.
And we do that with everything we produce. So it's not just like for photo. If we do that with we have a chemical for killing algae in water. We retain those samples of every batch, right? I forget for how many years, but there's a lot of record keeping, and there's a lot of samples in cabinets that we have to maintain so that we can go back X amount of years and check to make sure something, like the pH wasn't off or the concentration wasn't off or no contamination. We're pretty strict about it.
Yeah, I think one thing I always preach is in my setup is how consistent I have to be, and the more consistent I am, the better things produce in my garden. And that's what you guys are just saying right there. Getting the microbes from your fermented bottles that are lab tested, all that stuff, you're guaranteed to have that consistency of the microbes. When, like you said, you could go get soil from your backyard, but that consistency is not there. And if you want to have consistent runs of, getting better, and better, it's better to have that consistency, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, once you come up with your recipe, your regimen, right, for growing, and you've got it dialed in and you're happy with it, you want to be able to reproduce it. And in order to do that, especially in the world of microbes, it helps to have a product that every time you open that bottle, it's going to be the same, right? So it's not going to be different than the last time you did it. Early on, when we first came out with the products, what I used to hear from people, it took a while, right? So 12 years ago, I guess it is now, people would say, I don't want to add any bacteria to my system. I'm trying to kill it all, right? I mean, they like the thought of adding good microbes to the system was alien to a lot of people. And then you got, as time went on, it was like, oh, well, I just brew a tea, but the consistency is just not there. And like I said, the risk for contamination is high. When you're not growing in a lab environment, you're not fermenting and processing the way in a controlled environment. Making it in your garage is not going to be the same thing that comes out of our lab.
Right. I got a couple questions. It's still me. Sorry, I'm taking all the questions from everybody. For Photosynthesis Plus in particular, I've heard people say if the smell goes away, it's no longer good. Is that the case, or?
No, and Brett kind of touched on that a second ago. The color and the smell really are no indication. So,
okay.
The way to look at it is, right, so I actually just opened a gallon here, right? So I've had a couple of gallons sitting around here literally for months outside, and I just opened the last gallon that I had here. I use it on everything, right? There's a little conversation before, but I have hundreds of succulents and cactus and I grow all kinds of tropical fruits and some vegetables out there. And I use photo on everything. I mean, literally everything. And so I always have it around, but I'll pick up a case and I just leave it sitting outside. And it's hot here in Florida, right? So this bottle has been here for, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months. And it was sitting outside. It was hot. And the seal on the bottle, the inner seal, popped. Right? So it gassed off. So you open it up, there's none of that sulfur smell. Product is still fine. It's just going to have a shorter shelf life. So the trick, as I mentioned before, is every time you use it is to close that cap. All right. So make sure after you pour some out, you want to keep it in the container it ships in until you're ready to use it. And then after you pour out whatever you're going to use, make sure to close that cap and just don't sit it in direct sunlight. You should be fine. The heat. Anything below 120 degrees, you're going to be fine. But the smell will eventually go away for a couple of reasons. One, every time you use it, you increase the amount of air space in the bottle. So when you close it, the bacteria uses up the oxygen and to drive it anaerobic to feed on the food that we put in the bottle. Right. So over time, it uses up the food, and every time you open it, it gasses off, and eventually the smell will go away. That's why unopened, right? We typically say, I think it says 2 years on the bottle, but we always say we guarantee it for, 2.5 years, guaranteed. I have literally opened bottles that are 6 years old that I forgot were in my garage, and it's fine. It will live for a long time in that bottle as long as you don't cook it and you keep it sealed. It will change color, right? The color will fade. Because the bacteria is photosynthetic and it's purple bacteria, the more light it gets, the darker it gets. So you might look at a bottle of photo that's right out of the grow room, and it's dark purple. right? And then you might look at a bottle that's been sitting on a shelf in a store for a couple months, and it might just be kind of like, yeah, it's not quite clear. It's just got like a little bit of a tinge to it. Color doesn't matter. The color is the bacteria. The more light it gets, the darker it gets. You might see a bottle where the bottle looks clear, but one side of the bottle has just this thick coating of purple, right? Because all the bacteria, one side was getting light, and all the bacteria moved to one side. It built a biofilm, and it's living on the side of the bottle. Just shake it up. Sometimes you might see like this thick. People will sometimes say, "Oh my God, there's fungus growing in there." That's not fungus. That's biofilm. That's great, right? Just shake it up. You'll be fine. So the color can change significantly from not quite clear to dark purple, and the smell will fade over time. But like I said, while it's sealed, it'll live for years and years in that bottle, many years. Once you break that seal and it starts to gas off and more oxygen gets in the bottle every time you use it, typically I say it's good for about a year, right? Because it's going to eventually, it'll gas off all the sulfide, it'll use up all the food source, and it'll start to get weaker and weaker, and eventually it'll all die off and you'll have a bottle of water. It's still good for a year. If you get a bottle that doesn't smell, or you have a bottle that loses its smell and it's still got even a little bit of color, you're good. You're good to go. If you have a bottle that has almost no color but it still smells, you're good to go. No color, I mean, if it just looks like water and it has no smell, then at that point it probably is water. But if it's got even, like I said, the slightest tinge of color, whether it's got smell or not, it's still good. And none of that is an indicator of efficacy. It's a living thing, the bacteria. The color changes again depending on light, and that smell will fade over time.
Perfect. Yeah, you answered like 3 of my last remaining questions there. So perfect.
By the way, it's very rare, but if you ever see a bottle that looks like gray sludge and it smells like burnt tires, that's bad. Just throw it away. But that's very rare. I mean, I think I've only seen it twice in 12 years, but that's where the bacteria is just kind of gone off the rails. But other than that, the color, I mean, the smell is pretty distinct. Instead of that sulfur rotten egg smell, it smells like somebody's burning rubber in the parking lot. That's the only indicator of a bad batch.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, that's 2 different smells too. So that's great information. Thank you. Because we've always, well, not always, but we've heard people say, "Oh, well, I bought this bottle. It's got this ring around on top. Is this bad?" It's like, I don't think so. I think that means it's good.
Yeah, you can actually. There's a couple of things that can happen. One I mentioned. Sometimes it looks like there's like mold or fungus growing in the bottle. That's good. Just shake it up. Sometimes there's like a crustiness at the top. And what happens is there's all, like I said, there's spore-based bacteria in the bottle too, and sometimes it during the fermentation it wakes up and then it starts to go back to spore, and it'll kind of leave like a crustiness around the top. None of that's bad. It's okay. Just shake the bottle and go.
There's a bunch of stuff brewing in there. It's all good.
Let's just say for some reason the microbes did go bad, or something happened within shipping, or if it was stored in temperatures that were too high. For whatever reason, if a cultivator or grower, no matter what they were using it for, cannabis, fruits and vegetables, succulents, any cacti, that if they use the product that they think, just let's say, turned, it's not going to harm the plant or the soil at all. It's pretty much just back to water.
Yeah, it won't hurt anything if it dies off or goes bad. It's not going to hurt anything. It just won't work.
Joker asks, since you guys do your own testing, I'm curious to hear your options on the Purple Pro and the Gamma Cert potency testers, if you know those.
I actually don't.
Okay, well, Joker,
Purple Pro. Yeah.
You're stumping us, man. And Justin, okay, well, sorry, I missed a bunch of Justin.
I think what Joker was asking was about potency and like cannabinoid and terpene testing, and I think what you guys were talking about was actually testing your microbe cultures. So I think maybe there's a little disconnect there.
He's typing, correct, misunderstood.
Yeah. So in our lab we're testing our bacterial cultures to make sure everything's present and what shouldn't be there isn't. In terms of testing for You know, oddly enough, right, we're sitting here in Florida. We can't grow cannabis here, and so we do all of our testing over the years has been we farm it out, right? We can't grow the plant here even for research purposes. So we send it out and we let other people, grow with the products and test their end product. So we're not testing in house for terpenes and CBD and THC. We don't have the ability to do that in house.
We got a lot of questions towards your products. So I'm going to save those for the fun questions till the end. So I'm not skipping you, Justin. Just going to push them to the end there. Billypodunk asks, what is the primary benefit of the bottle fermentation versus bulk fermentation and post bottling?
Okay, so the primary benefit to bottle fermentation is stability. If we fermented the bacteria, the key here that makes it work, that ties all of this stuff together, is to ferment all these strains in the bottle as a unit, as a consortium, let's call it, right? And the photosynthetic bacteria is very key to our product, right? To the product success and how it functions. If we did that, there are other products that talk about using photosynthetic bacteria. Problem is, they have no shelf life, right? So it may be there when they bottle it, but because of the way it's mixed and blended and bottled and not fermented in the container, those photosynthetics are dead, right? Within 30, 60, 90 days tops. If you were to sequence it, you wouldn't find it. They just wouldn't be there. They won't survive. Part of the secret to the stability, right, is there's a little more to it than just fermenting it in the container, but is product stability. That's why we say keep it in the bottle we ship it in, because there's food in there, right? There's stuff in there to help stabilize it and keep this ecosystem going to maintain those photosynthetic strains. And if we didn't ship it, if we mixed it in a big batch and fermented it in a large container and then bottled it down, it would have a very short shelf life. I mean, from the time it got from our warehouse to the distributor to the dealer to the grower, you might have, you'd be lucky if you have 3 weeks to use it before it's all dead. At least the photosynthetic strains, the spore based, that stuff where the spore bacteria will live for years and years. But to really get the benefit of those photosynthetics, it has to be fermented in the container. That's why photos in a clear bottle, and a lot of it has to do with concentration too, right? And if you ever buy a bottle of root dip or yield enhancer, there's some photo in there, and it survive. It still has a longer shelf life, but it's not nearly as concentrated, and there's a lot of carbon in there, right? Because of the humates in those bottles, so it has this massive food source to work with, but it's nowhere near the concentration of photo. I mean, so photo has to be, to keep that concentration, the potency, let's call it. It has to be fermented in the container, and that's whether it's the product we're shipping, out for use in the Philippines on pineapple, or the product you're buying, to grow plants in your grow. Those bottles are all fermented in the container it ships in, if it's got the bacteria. Otherwise, it just wouldn't have a shelf life.
Nexus 6 asks, will your water dechlorinator prevent pH drift in a hydroponic bottom feeding setup? Octopods.
It's a good question. I have to say I don't know, right? So the dechlorinator, I've never looked at it for that. It is a great way to quickly remove chlorine and chloramine from water. It's a very basic chemistry. It's been around for 40 plus years. The active ingredient is sodium thiosulfate. It's actually used to help things like cyanide poisoning in people. So it's very safe to use. It just reacts with and it out, neutralizes it out. I never looked at it in terms of preventing pH drift or anything like that, just in terms of removal of the chlorine. It's an interesting question. I'd have to run that by our lab.
Billypodunk asks, is the ratio of different microorganisms important?
Um, so that actually that's a complex question, but I'm to be honest with you, I'm more concerned with getting all the strains in, right, and in terms of how much of this one versus that one. The bacteria, in my opinion, right, in my experience, the bacteria once it's in the system will kind of grow to suit the environment, right? You'll get it'll over time you'll build up the colonies. They're not going to go past what can be supported by the system, by the environment, carbon sources, light, whatever it is that's feeding them. Um, they're gonna balance out with the growth system. Um, it's definitely, I mean, you want a high enough count and that it's you're going to get a bang for your buck. It's going to get you jump started, and it's going to help maintain the system. But the ratio of one strain over another is a little less important to me than just making sure they all get into the system. Like I wouldn't sit there. I mean, the lab might tell you differently. Somebody in our lab might say, well, in order to get this to stabilize in the bottle and get this benefit over that benefit, you want these to one of that to three of those. So those ratios in the lab in terms of producing the product are a little more important than I look at it. But to me, I would say it's the ratio to me isn't as important as getting enough of the bacteria into the system to do and getting all of the different things in there that we want to see to do the different functions in terms of plant and soil biology. I hope that was clear.
No, that's a great response. Thank you. We've got Petro is asking, can you use Photosynthesis Plus in a recirculating system?
Yeah. I mean, so you can use photo in any system, right? It'll and depending on the system, right, and how much water you have, typically, like if you're draining out your reservoir and refilling it, add it back in once a week. But absolutely, it can be used in a recirculating system. I did some, there were years back people were saying, oh, you can't use it in a DWC system because of anaerobic conditions and whatever. I did some tests on my own. Obviously, like I said, I can't grow cannabis here. I did some tests on pepper plants and had great healthy roots. And like every system, even in less than ideal conditions, it'll work in any system, whether it's aeroponic, hydroponic, aquaponic. Just pouring it into the soil by hand, it'll work. So yes, it will work in a recirculating system.
Frosty McNuggets asks, what week does this stop being beneficial to the grow? And I'll add on to that. Should we be using it like once a week? Photosynthesis Plus, should you be using it like once a week? Should we be using it every time we feed?
So I say use it every day because I get paid to sell it. No, the answer there is we recommend once a week, right? I mean, you can do it more. There are some people, and by the way, it can be used as in foliar application. Some people like it, some people don't. So there are people that will once a week add it to the watering, right, for one run or reservoir change depending on how you're growing, and then may do a second follow up with a foliar application. But our recommendation is basically once a week, right? Add it to your water, whether you're changing out or you're running it through irrigation or hand watering once a week. I recommend doing it from seed to flush, and go beyond. You could go to harvest. You're not going to fail a test. It's not going to be a problem. But typically, it's from most people use it. Either from seed to or week one, let's call it to flush. There are people that I say all the time. If you ask 10 different growers, how they use the product, you'll get 13 different answers. And because people, they change their recipes, they tailor it, and I say it all the time too. If you go to our website or you've ever requested a dosage chart from us, I say all the time, if you've never used the product, use our dosage chart, use our labeled recommendations. the first time out, right? To get a baseline for what we expect you to see out of the product. But beyond that, play with it, right? Adjust your recipe, adjust your usage. You may find using it at 3 times or 4 times the recommended rate, for the first month, and not using it after that works great for you. You may find using it exactly as we say on the label works great for you, or you may find using it every other week, alternating between prevention or foliar spray. There's really no wrong way to use it other than not using it, right? So as long as you get the bacteria into the system, if you're not using something to kill the bacteria, you're not running a peroxide or some kind of some kind of root cleaner that's going to kill the bacteria, or you're not using some kind of pesticide, chemical pesticide to treat a disease issue that's going to kill the bacteria. The bacteria will continue to reproduce, right? The idea using it once a week is to maintain the levels, because you'll get what's called washout. A certain amount of the bacteria will die off. It'll run out of certain things. Maybe using certain different things for a food source. We want to maintain a certain level of bacteria in the system. So we recommend using it once a week. But you may find with your nutrient program in your system that every other week is good, or just using it for 6 weeks is good. Play with it. I encourage that. Right? Find what works best for you. Our goal. I joke about using more because that's how I get paid, right? But our goal is to right, we don't gouge, right? I mean, look at our pricing. We could have come out at a much higher price compared, if you look at some of the other biologicals on the market. We're really a reasonably priced product, and it's because we have a commercial background in agriculture, and we didn't come out going, wow, look what we can do, and we can get $300 a bottle for this. We price it where we think it needs to be. But I'm not trying to oversell anything, right? I don't want you to buy more than you need. So play with it, figure out what works best for you. But I recommend using it once a week, from seed to flush. But again, for you, you may find you don't need to use it as often. There are guys that, our recommended dosage is 1 to 2 ounces per 5 gallons of water. There are people that use an ounce per gallon and are really happy with those results. That's a lot of product. And I'm not going to say it's not going to add some benefit, really heavy dosing the bacteria, but I don't know that it's absolutely necessary, but different people use it different ways. And we really just want people to have success in their grow. Anyway, I think I went way beyond the answer in that question, but once a week is what we.
Yeah. That was an awesome question. I got a little follow-up question to that. So me personally, I try to preach to people to start foliar spraying with it. A lot of people are like, I ain't spraying shit on my plants, So,
yeah.
But I do both. I'll soak my entire plant in Photosynthesis Plus, basically on the foliar all the way down to the root, and I do that once a week. But do you think I'm overdoing it? Do you think people can just get away with doing it in the soil, or is there an added benefit to also foliaring it? Because when I foliar it, I can see my plants. If they were sad one day, I spray them. The next day, they're praying up and just loving life.
That's interestingly, I think in the long run, you'll get the same benefit, all right, whether you ever do a foliar application or not. I think you see a little bit more immediate response from foliar application. Because it's working its way down instead of up, I guess would be a way to look at it. But it moves very quickly through the plant system. If you take a plant where you've never used photo and you water it in, 45 minutes later, if you took a leaf cutting and ran it through DNA sequencing, you would find at least the photosynthetic bacteria already in the leaf. Right? So it moves pretty quickly through the plant, and there does seem to be a more immediate response to the foliar application. The plants definitely like it. But I think the long term in the benefits to your grow, I don't know that you're getting anything extra from doing a foliar application. There are definitely areas of the country where they're worried about mildew, about PM, and don't want to increase that humidity level. by doing, by spraying anything. There is a benefit in terms of helping prevent powdery mildew with a foliar application of photo, but there's just different schools of thought. In California, we used to have actually foliar application on our label, but we took it off because California said you're not allowed to say it. That's why foliar spray and root dip in California is just called root dip. You can't say foliar and you can't say photosynthesis in California. Not sure what's going on there, but yeah, I don't know that you're going to get anything extra out of doing a foliar application, but you can definitely see the plants respond quicker.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, 100%. The response time is quick. So you just think it's just the response time that I'm getting with foliar than in the soil, which is what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I do both. But hey guys, we're gonna actually wrap it up because we're an hour and 30 minutes in already. This is the longest one we've ever had. I think we could just keep on going. So if you guys would want to do like a second one in the future to where we can have a follow up when we already know you guys now, and we could have a follow up with all the other questions we have for you. And I mean, we could sit here for hours. I feel like you guys are so
We're
smart.
only really covering one product too, that Photosynthesis Plus. I mean, we've got the new product and then the other three that I think we could really dive into. I think that'd be great if you guys want to do that maybe a couple months and dig some more in.
Listen, we'd love to be back if you'd have us. Any opportunity to speak to amazing people like yourself, build a relationship, get to know you better, and your listeners, we're certainly, all in on. So we would love the opportunity to, chat again and go over more and, continue to work together. I mean, I think you have a wonderful platform, and the work you're doing is so important. So if you would ever have us back again, we would be honored.
Thank you, man. And you guys are in the community now, so I mean, we're always in the voice chat. If you guys ever have free time and you want to just connect with the community at all, you're more than welcome to join the Smokers Lounge. We got a couple companies in here that will just stay in the text chats and answer questions for people. So I just appreciate you guys coming on here. It's just been awesome. This podcast was awesome. You guys are just exactly what we look for and supporting in our community. So I just appreciate you guys so much.
Well, thanks for
having us.
And this is actually part of the show here where you guys get to plug whatever you want to plug. You can say whatever you want to say, your socials. This is your time to say whatever you want.
Go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, yeah, don't forget it. If you want to try the Terps, definitely go to the website and request a free sample. We try it. That's how we built Photo Plus from ground root movement, right? By giving out those samples and getting the feedback. And we want the feedback, right? Good or bad. We want your experience with the product because that helps us down the line.
I guess in any plug opportunity, what I would first say is, of course, thank you to you and your listeners. Second, all the product information always is at, www.microbelifehydro.com. And our Instagram is very popular, all organically grown. So a lot of posts on Instagram daily, stories. You can DM us at Microbe Life Hydro handle on Instagram as well. And just, the last thing that I wanted to say in the realm of plugs, I lost my thought actually, but the bottom line is you could find us on Instagram. You can find us on our own website, microbelifehydro.com, and our handle on Instagram at microbelifehydro. And you could always direct message us there, and we'll get back to you and answer your questions.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. That's how I reached out to them, was on Instagram, and they were instantly responsive. So I can back up what they're saying 100%. I actually skipped all the fun questions from Justin, so I'm going to ask you guys just a real quick one. What is your favorite succulent that you grow?
That's hard for me to say because I literally have more than 100 varieties here. It's an obsession. Lately I've been really big on the mesems and the like lithops. I've got a ton of living stones of lithops going here.
Those are so cool, man. Those are so cool.
But lately, like Avonias and Aloanopsis have been a big thing for me. I just added some really cool aloes to my collection. I have my office, so I mostly work from home, and I literally have these bamboo light boxes. Like they're hanging on the wall. I'm surrounded by succulents all day long. It's sort of my zen space. So yeah, when Brett's bugging me all day long, I can just look at my plants and be happy again. Um, but yeah, right now I would say like the lithops are probably my favorite to play with. I'm growing some from seed. That's a new project for me. I'm also growing a little peyote from seed here, which was a project I started a couple months ago.
You're a long ways away from the finish line on that one.
Yeah, they're tiny. I have one plant that I actually brought back from Europe. I shouldn't talk about it, right? Illegal here in Florida too. But I have a peyote that I brought back from Europe. I think it's at this point almost 20 years old, and it's cool. It's not real big, but it seems to be it's stretching. It's a weird plant, but yeah, lately it's been growing from. So I'm growing Dudleyas from seed and some Crassula from seed and Lithops from seed. The Lithops are popping, and I have some peyote that are the size of a pinhead right now.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Awesome show. Billy, go ahead. Or, sorry. Thank you. Seriously, thank you, guys. I'm not trying to skip over you. Thank you so much for being on here. I appreciate it.
Whether or not you want to do it for your listeners, if you want, why don't you raffle off, if you want, a gallon each of our core 4 products, and you could pick a winner in any which way you want, and we'll send a grand prize gallon of the Photo, the Nourish, the Root Dip, and the Veg and Fruit Yield Enhancer to one of the lucky winners. If however you want to raffle it off, or however you would, we'd love to do that.
Oh shit, yeah, you betcha. We'll talk right after this recording, and we'll get that all set up, man. I appreciate it. Everybody would love that. But yeah, guys, thank you. You've been more than amazing, more than responsive to all my questions and answering everything. I appreciate you guys so much, seriously.
Well, thank you, and Brett can confirm it's really difficult to get me to actually jump on something like this. I'm great face to face at like a show, or I'm out talking to people, but I tend to hide from this type of thing. So, but this was a lot of fun. I mean, this is, I think, might be the first time I've actually, aside from just a couple of quick like Facebook Live things, this is the first podcast I've ever joined.
Well, wow. I have to say, Scott, your knowledge about what's actually happening with these products is invaluable in having you on here. Not to downplay Brett, because I love what he has to say, but all of the technical details is, I think, what a lot of guys are looking for. These are the kind of conversations we have on a regular basis.
Cool. Yeah, that's actually what excites me about working for ecological labs. Is we are science based company. We're not just reselling other product that we're buying from people. We have our own lab. I have people I can talk to if I have questions. The science aspect of it, the technical aspect of it, is what keeps me here.
So if we're in Florida, if one of the homies is in Florida, one of the listeners is in Florida and is in the area, is it possible to tour your facility or get like maybe just kind of an idea of what you guys are doing and what your infrastructure is like?
Yeah, it is possible. Like I said, I live here in Florida, right? I'm not at the office on a regular basis, but I'm not far away. So with some notice, I can always arrange it. Depends what we have going on, because we do a lot of commercial work. We sometimes have all kinds of meetings going on at the office about commercial ag or wastewater or whatever. So it's not always possible, but usually with enough notice, we can make those arrangements and meet someone at our facility and see the lab and talk to the people in the lab. Check out the production. The grow rooms. The grow rooms are impressive. If you go to our website, you'll see pictures of the grow rooms, but it's kind of impressive to walk into those rooms where the bacteria is actually fermenting, and it smells wonderful.
All right, boys. Well, we'll wrap this up here. Thank you guys for having us, or you being on our show. I don't know what I'm talking about here.
A lot of fun. This was a lot of fun.
There you go, smoke. Billy, go ahead and say your socials, man.
Well, I'm Billypodunk everywhere on the web. I've not been posting. I've had some personal stuff I've had to deal with in the last 10 days or so, so all my stuff's pretty quiet. Additionally, I'm not going to talk about seeds. I just want to say I really commend these guys once again for going from a non-cannabis related industry and having the courage and fortitude and foresight to get involved with a bunch of really great people growing cannabis. Hats off to you guys. That's all I got, Graybeard.
And you can find me on Instagram, Graybeards _ consulting. You can find our YouTube, the Irie Army podcast on YouTube. We'll post this up live there. And next week, our guest is Rosin Ryan. And my new thing is to tell you to drink more water. Hashtag Hydro Homies. We don't drink enough water here. We're always drinking that nasty pop or sugary stuff. Let's treat ourselves the way we treat our plants. Drink more water. Hydro Homies. And that's all I got for you guys tonight. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys, for having us.
All right, Scott.